The East African community has a new member. On today's show, we'll look at what this means for the regional bloc and what the new member brings to the table. From East Africa, we head to the southern parts of the continent where Zimbabwe has altered its rate structure for local exporters. This is Business Edge. I'm Tolulokwe Adeleru Balogun. African business headlines get us started today. Kenya Airways passenger capacity to Europe has been slashed by 22%, with the airline forced to fly with empty seats after the Amsterdam-based Schiphol International Airport reduced the national carrier's passenger capacity. Schiphol, a major international transit hub in Europe, said at least 13,000 seats would be slashed daily as the busy summer season begins and there are expectations of cancellations. The Russia-Ukraine conflict knocked off 13.3 billion Kenyan shillings in imports from Moscow in the 3 months to March, forcing Kenya to turn to expensive sources of wheat, fertilizer, and steel that helped drive inflation to a 58-month high. The latest data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics shows that the sharpest decline happened in the 3 months to March as troops from Moscow marched into Ukraine, with imports from Russia dropping 66%. From 19.9 billion Kenyan shillings to 6.6 billion Kenyan shillings. Away from East Africa now, South Africa's Competition Commission, which has been probing online markets for the past 14 months, has provisionally found that Google searches practice distorts competition in Google's favor. The commission said in a statement that the inquiry provisionally recommends that paid results are prominently labeled as advertising, with borders and shading to be clearer to consumers, and at the top of the page is reserved for organic or natural search results based on relevance only, uninfluenced by payments. Short-term insurers have seen a significant increase in claims as a result of the severe power cuts across South Africa. Power surges have caused damage to sensitive electronic equipment whenever electricity supply is restored, while car accidents increase when traffic lights and street lighting stop working. Burglaries have also been on the increase when the lights go out and alarm systems shut down. You're watching Business Edge. Now founded in 1967, the East Africa community recently accepted a new member. After the break, we'll look at what the Democratic Republic of the Congo brings to the table and what it will be taking away. Stay with us. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has completed the process of joining the East African Community, EAC. The country is now the bloc's 7th member, joining Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, South Sudan, Tanzania, and Uganda. With this, the EAC collectively has a population of over 300 million people, and its GDP increases to $250 million. The DRC's admission will afford it the full rights of any member country of the EAC. This means that it will be part of the group's common market for goods, labor, and capital. In the future, it is expected that the partnership will deepen to the extent of a common currency and full political federation. For the EAC, the benefits of having the DRC as a member are quite clear. With the population increased by 50% and the GDP rising by 22%, the territorial area will also increase by 79%, and the EAC will gain access to the Atlantic Ocean, opening up the region to trade from the Western Hemisphere. But what does the DRC stand to gain from the partnership? Joining me from Nairobi, Kenya is Dr. Iraki, economist and associate professor at the University of Nairobi. Dr. Iraki, welcome once again to Business Edge. Thank you for joining me. All right, there we go. Thank you so much for joining me. So when you look at the Democratic Republic of the Congo now becoming a member of the EAC, I touched just a bit on some of those benefits that the country stands to gain, but let's start the conversation off with that. In terms of the economic benefits, particularly for the DRC, what do we expect from this joining of the community now?
I think it's very good news to have DRC joining the East African community. It's very similar to the rest of the Africa. They talk a bit of Swahili. culturally, linguistically, even physical appearance, they are very much like the rest of East Africa. So the biggest benefit is more trade. You trade more with your neighbors, and DRC has quite a number of neighbors, about 5 of them. We expect more mobility of people. So we expect Congolese to go to Kenya to study, Kenyans to go to the rest of the neighborhood of Congo. So we expect a lot of interaction in terms of movement of labor, in terms of trade, and in terms of cultural exchange. So that is going to give us a very good impetus to growth in the East African region. I dream one day I'll be able to drive from Mombasa to the western part of Congo through the Congo forest. Great dreams.
So do we have any concerns, or do we perceive possibly any risk that might come from the DRC's economy because of this joining of the EAC now?
I think the biggest concern for everybody is that DRC has not been very stable for the last few years. So we expect some interaction in terms of trade. If you invest in Congo, you see some risks. I know some Kenyan banks have been going there, some Kenyan traders have been going there, some East African traders have been going there in the original East African community. So people see some risk because of instability. But we hope that by joining the East African community, Congo will become more stable. We engage in more trade, engage in more labor mobility, and become a more stable and prosperous country.
So when you look at this now, let's turn the tables a little bit. In terms of the advantages from the previous members that have been part of the EAC, what are they gaining now with the Democratic Republic of Congo joining the party?
I think the most immediate advantage is they see a bigger market, a new investment destination. So some Kenyans, some Ugandans, some Tanzanian companies have excess capacity or some excess resources. So now they have a new country to go and invest in, so that they are going to get better returns. Remember that Congo is not as developed as some of the African countries. So by opening up, we're going to fight them. So it is gaining for them, also a gain for Congo.
All right, so I would like to hear from the presidents, some of the presidents that were present at the signing of this historic agreement. And let's hear what they think are some of the benefits that we're going to be seeing with the EAC bringing in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Adhérant à la communauté, le peuple congolais ne veut pas seulement se contenter des bénéfices d'un commerce intracommunautaire, mais il aspire d'abord et surtout à entretenir des relations fondées sur la paix et la sécurité de tous.
Gentlemen, the accession of the DRC as a member of the East African community will even more elevate these gains, and more importantly, it will strengthen our economic muscle and competitiveness in the continent as well as globally.
I think one of the first questions I should have also asked, but I know we've talked about this before, is why has it taken the DRC so long to become part of the EAC?
I think that's a good question. I think one of the reasons has been instability in the country, and also the question of the language. Remember, Congo speaks French, the rest of East Africa talk English. If you remember the original East African countries, they were formerly British colonies, so they had a lot of commonalities. It's not the same when you talk about Congo. Congo has been more probably French-speak problem of communication. If you look at the border between the original East Africa and Congo, there's a very big mountain, there are very big rivers, so the communication network cannot be very good. That's probably one reason why they have not joined, it has not joined the rest of East Africa.
So while we see that the EAC brings more, a greater population, brings a larger market as well, and even access, do you think that there are any concerns or any downsides for any of the other member states with the DRC coming on board?
Of course, there will be more competition and more attention. If you get, if you have 3 or 4 kids, and you get a 4th kid, the fourth kid or the last born gets more attention. So the East African community must be ready for competition. Because if you're going to take your resources, let's say you get China or Europe or another country that want to come and invest in East Africa, now they have more choices. So the East African countries, original countries, must now learn to compete with the Congo as a new kid on the block. But that's something we can handle.
All right, so before we go for a break, let's look at this comment. Now, during the ratification ceremony in Tanzania earlier this week, the DRC's Minister for Foreign Affairs, Christophe Lutun Dula Apala Penapala, highlighted the 4 pillars of regional integration: the customs union, the common market protocol, monetary union, as well as political federation. When it comes to having the ratifications, all of these things have been signed, but now seamlessly integrating the DRC into the EAC's protocols, how do you think that will be? How seamless do you think that will be? Do you expect to see any snags or hitches in how the DRC may have to change a few things, a few ways that it's been doing things, and how the EAC may need to make some adjustments for the DRC?
I think the most immediate concern is nationalism. If you look at the original East African community countries, they have always been very nationalistic. I've seen some sparks between Rwanda and Uganda. I've seen some sparks between Tanzania and Kenya. Because by joining East African community, a country cannot fully forget its national interests. So I think that is one risk we are going to see as countries get integrated. It will take time before countries realize that they gain more by being a member of a community than being individuals. I also believe that countries should realize that by being members of the East African community, they can now bargain as a group on the international level.
All right, Prof, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, let's drill down a bit more on the DRC. Who's going to take the most advantage of the country now joining the EAC, and of course some of the issues that the DRC brings with it in this conversation. The Democratic Republic of the Congo has joined the East African community, making itself the newest member. What it brings to the table and what the situation is for the country itself will be the next stop in this conversation. Stay with us. So with me is Dr. Iraki, economist and associate professor at the University of Nairobi. Now, the Democratic Republic of Congo has joined the East African community. There's been celebration and, of course, acknowledgement of what the DRC brings to the table. But let's see who really will benefit. The DRC shares borders with Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, and South Sudan. With a population of about 92 million people, these countries must consider the DRC to be quite the opportunity. So, Dr. Iraki, let's look at this. In terms of the countries that are going to really be opening themselves up to opportunities from the DRC or even trying to enter the DRC's population, who do you think really stands to benefit the most, or who will be successful in taking advantage of this opportunity?
I was simply saying that whoever is going to build the best communication networks will benefit most from this. So if you are going to build the roads, the railways, good networks, including ICT, you benefit most from the relationship with Congo joining East African community.
Okay, all right. So we know the DRC is very rich in natural resources, and we've seen that dependency grow in the past few years. It's been, unfortunately, a country that's also found itself in a lot of conflict because of these mineral resources. Those account for about 46% of government revenues and over 90% of the country's exports. But the majority of people in the DRC, the Congolese, have not benefited from what the country has to offer. So do you think there might be a chance to see an improvement in living standards, an improvement in how things are for the Congolese because of them joining the EAC?
That is very true. I expect that, because if Congo trades more with other East African countries, then a lot of resources will not go very far. You find Congolese going to invest in Kenya, they are going to invest in neighboring countries, and they will bring that wealth back home. It is much easier if the wealth of Congo is exploited by people from the neighboring country.
Unfortunately, we are experiencing some technical connection issues there with Dr. Iraki, who's joining us from Nairobi, Kenya, looking at the conversation around the Democratic Republic of Congo joining the East African community. It brings the number of EAC member countries to 7. But even though that might look like a small number, we know that the EAC is looking to expand its borders, to expand its membership. And with this joining, we might see some more countries expressing interest and also becoming parts of the East African community. So let me see if Dr. Iraki is with me. Dr. Iraki, are you back? So it looks like, unfortunately, I may not be able to continue the conversation with him. Wanted to check in with him in terms of the countries he believed could be eyeing EAC membership in the coming future, especially with the EAC being open to adding more members, and also a focus on the DRC itself. This is a country that has brought almost double the population to the EAC by joining, as well as giving it an opportunity for open markets and competitiveness. But it's also a country that has a number of issues. Aside from the very valuable and highly sought after mineral resources that the DRC has in the country, which unfortunately have not benefited the majority of those in the country, we are seeing some things in regards to that. And of course, also looking at the economy. But I do believe that's Dr. Iraki who has joined me once again. Dr. Iraki, are you with me now?
I can hear now.
Okay, fantastic. I can hear you as well. So I quickly wanted to touch base on the addition of the DRC to the EAC. So that makes the community now 7 member states, and the EAC has said it's open to bringing in more members. So who do you think we might see joining the ranks of the EAC in the coming years?
The two candidates are Ethiopia and Somali, and I'm most interested in Somali because that's the way we believe that joining East African community will become a more peaceful country. I believe that if Somalia joined East African country, it will become more peaceful and more prosperous. Ethiopia is a bigger country with over 100 million, to even make the market for East African community even bigger. So to me, those are the two main candidates, Ethiopia and Somali. And the sooner they join us, the better.
The sooner the better. So before I let you go, let's quickly look at the EAC, the DRC's economy itself. So let me look at this. In terms of the economy, it was doing quite well. We saw some 6.2% growth in 2021. But just like many other countries around the world, we've been hit hard. And of course, the DRC has been hit hard as well with the headwinds from the Russia-Ukraine crisis and struggling to come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. So the IMF is predicting that the DRC's economy will grow by just 6.1% this year. What do you think the government of the DRC needs to do to even ensure the country meets this target? We're already 6 months down the line, just a little under 6 months left to go in this year. So what needs to be done?
Well, the first thing to make sure is that there is peace in Congo. There has been some rebel activities in the eastern part of the country. So if Congo makes sure there is peace, I believe that growth rate is likely to be targeted, is likely to be achieved. Number two, Congo must start engaging the neighboring countries as soon as possible. Make sure that you start trading with the Sudan, with Ethiopia, not with Ethiopia, but Uganda and the neighboring countries. And I hope by now that Congo has very good strategies on how to start engaging in those countries so that the momentum is not lost. If Congo does that, I see Congo targeting that growth rate and even exceeding it. We have a lot of goodwill from the rest of East Africa, from the rest of Africa, for the new entry of the newest member of East African community.
All right, and we do wish the DRC the very best. We know how things are right now in the country, but this brings a lot of potential, opening up the population and opening up the markets as well. So we hope to see the best and the positive things come from this. Dr. Iraki, thank you so much for joining me from Nairobi, Kenya.
Thank you and have a good evening.
All right, the same to you. And we'll continue all of our conversations right here on Business Edge. Up next, we'll be heading to Southern Africa to check in with Zimbabwe as the country continues to struggle with its foreign exchange crisis. But before we do that, Leka Onobanjo is standing by to give you international business news. Do stay with us.
My name is Lekon Onobanjo. Now, the International Monetary Fund has agreed with Pakistan to resume a suspended loan program that will inject $1.17 billion into the struggling economy. A statement from the IMF said a staff-level agreement, which is still subject to board approval, will bring to $4.2 billion the amount dispersed under an extended fund facility that could increase to $7 billion and stretch until June next year. The original $6 billion bailout package was signed by former Prime Minister Imran Khan in 2019, but repeatedly stalled when his government reneged on subsidy agreements and failed to significantly improve tax collection. Chinese regulators have been asked to exercise greater caution when it comes to reviewing new overseas spending and investment plans amid concerns among senior leaders that higher U.S. interest rates could spur capital outflows. State-owned companies were similarly told that they should be cautious when spending and investing overseas. According to reports, no specific targets or limitations have been set on such expenditure abroad. However, the move signals authorities' concern over capital outflows as China's economy slows under the weight of its COVID-0 approach to the pandemic, making it challenging for the government to meet its 5.5% growth target for the year. And away from that, the European Commission has predicted record levels of inflation and slashed its gross domestic product forecast for 2022 and 2023 as a result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which crumbled demand due to surging prices and the danger of winter energy shortages. The Commission now expects inflation to jump 7.6% in 2022, higher than its May estimate of 6.1% for the year. It also expects inflation to rise 4% next year from May's forecast of 2.7%, citing a draft from the European Union executive arm. Now, inflation was estimated in May to be 6.1% for this year, which was in itself a major rise from the 3.5% estimated before the invasion of Ukraine. To put the figures in proper perspective, the Commission's forecasts will be unveiled later today. We also tell you that Australia's unemployment rate dived to a 48-year low in June as hiring outstripped all expectations, while record vacancies suggested the labour market was set to tighten further and perhaps justify even larger increases in interest rates. Figures from the Australian Bureau of Statistics on Thursday showed net employment had surged 88,400 in June from May, when it jumped 60,600. That blew away market forecasts of 30,000 rise in June and brought gains for the year to a rousing 438,000. The jobless rate slid to 3.5% from 3.9%, well below forecasts of 3.8% and the lowest since August 1974. The dive came even as more people went looking for work, with the participation rate climbing to a record high of 66.8%. Now, another digital currency vendor platform has filed for bankruptcy. Celsius Network announced that it has filed for voluntary Chapter 11 proceedings, becoming the latest in the crypto sector to succumb to the recent plunge in prices. The crypto lender, with $167 million cash on hand, has filed for a series of customary motions to allow the company continue operations and to ensure a smooth transition into Chapter 11. It is, however, not requesting authority to allow customer withdrawals at this time, and customer claims will be addressed through the Chapter 11 process. And those are the stories that we have for you on the international scene. We will head to Southern Africa on the show this morning after the break, I tell you, and check in on how Zimbabwe is trying to handle its foreign exchange crisis. So there's more for you after this break.